Right, last time we were painting Dell, we did the flesh on the face and the hands, and then the inner cloak. I think it came out really good. Today we're going to be focusing on fabrics, the breeches and tunic primarily. And Dell, the Cleric of Lathander, again, as I was picking out colors, I wanted to look at fabric color ideas that were going to be possibly a little more expensive, luxurious, really more fashionable than practical for an adventurer in the field. With his background as a courtesan noble, Dell will not be thinking a whole lot about practicality, which actually is good, and part of the reason changing him from the plate armored miniature to this wizard miniature was just because the player is definitely looking at him as a fun role-playing adventurer who is using his background and backstory really well in-game. He's not rushing to get armor or looking for super practical clothing. He is there to make sure that his name is recorded as being the best cleric of Lathander and representing those who are less fortunate than him, which in his opinion is everyone, because nobody in this region has noble titles. So making sure that he is representing them while they serve him. So looking at fabrics, I based this color for the breeches off of a really nice wool item that I have, and it's got a lot of grays in it, but it's a warm gray. It's got lowlights of browns and really looks good. So I just started with a medium gray, and then I'm going to do a wash of a light brownish gray. So it was a home blend. I just blended some medium brown with the base color of gray and used some thinner to turn it into a real thin wash. But the grays and everything will stand out pretty good from that almost rainbow, twilight rainbow background on the inner cloak, and should look very soft and supple and like a very pricey wool. So just laying in the washes, those will sit in and deepen the shadows, and not really so much shadows that I'm worried about as in just low laying areas. But this brownish gray wash will sit on that gray and give us a good color to then reapply our base coat and then up into our highlights. And I'm not going to reveal the tunic yet. We'll go over the colors when I start laying them in, but I'm not going to say where I got the idea yet until we're close to the finished part. This is just a warm yellow, and he's got a bit of a necklace there that's holding the robe together, so a little challenging to get into, but just a good thin even coat will apply to the entire tunic, making sure that we leave the inner cloak parts that we painted. Remember, this is the purple into midnight blue shade that'll sit on either side of this tunic, and actually the colors should play pretty well together if I used my shading and everything correctly. They should frame this color real well. This will not be the final color. This is just the base. And here on this lower part of the tunic that's showing beneath the belt, it actually blended a bit with the shadow color, which is okay because that same shadow color will be used on the tunic. It's a very similar. It has a little bit more of the brown rather than the gray, but for this lower area that's fine. because we're worried more about the base color than the shadow. So I think it'll sit just fine. Now in our game world, Dell has already met a few other followers of Lathander. There is a an elf conclave where they have been adventuring. They've been to the elf conclave a couple of times, completed a couple of quests through there, and actually because of Dell's ties with Lathander, he has scored the party free room and board basically whenever they're there at the Temple of Lathander, so it's pretty nice. So now we're going back in and just applying the base color again after we let the wash dry, and this we're doing a lot more subtle. That base coat where it had the shadow color sit on top of it is now more of almost a mustard yellow or a brownish yellow. So going back to the base coat and then going just nice thin coats up towards the highest areas, we'll start to give this almost a velvety appearance as we get to the highlights. And it'll be a little bit more apparent, the transitions of colors from the breeches that we're doing. So it's still warm colors. This again ties into the yellow, which is the player's favorite color. Of course, you can tell by the base. So we're adding in just more yellow. Here on the breeches, we're going back into our base color of grays, and then as we continue to highlight, we'll add more stone gray to lighten it up. And these breeches were actually kind of interesting. This is like the most buff leg wizard. He does a lot of leg days, so a lot of the muscle groupings in his upper legs are just bulging right through the breeches, and then there's a lot of fabric fold and wrinkle just above the boots. So kind of an interesting sculpt. If you have a wizard with a high strength, you might consider this miniature from Reaper as your mini to represent your character. But now going into a lighter yellow and just smaller and smaller highlights. And again, this will be a lot more, this won't be as subtle of a highlight as the pants. Again, I was looking for ideas on textures that would really represent what kind of materials and fabrics and everything Dell might want to wear. Doesn't matter if he's going on an adventure or not, he wants to be comfortable. He wants to be luxuriant, and he wants to be kind of stand out, recognizable as a cleric of Lathander, as Dell. Delwyn is very sure that everybody should know who he is, because he's Delwyn, of course. And into highlights on the legs. And again, these, it's kind of interesting, just the folds right above the boots, but the muscle masses throughout the upper legs was a little bit contrasty, but again, I think we work it really well. And this should come out looking like a very, very high pill wool pants that would be, of course, warm and comfortable and pretty supple. So definitely speaks to me of Dell. And I know the camera burns in and out of focus as I move my hand. I apologize. But you can start to see the fabric layers or folds or shape of the fabric. And onto final highlight areas of the tunic, going into the brightest yellows that we're going to use. And again, just very subtle. these are the highest points. So my goal was for that to look like either silk or some type of a crushed velvet, maybe even velour, depending on how his coins are going, but almost a crushed velvet look for that top, just for that suppleness and the warmth that it would give in the field. Again, Dell is all about comfort. And on to the final highlights on the breeches. Again, this is stone gray. We went up to a stone gray, so a pretty light gray in color. From brown grays into stone gray, and the shirt, the tunic, into velvety, buttery yellows. Now, I went ahead and did the beard here because I did not do it with the face. I'm just laying down a medium dark brown, and I'm going to highlight it with actually golds that we used on the shirt, so almost that mid layer. And with that staff there, it's a little challenging to get that opposite end, but he does have a beard and mustache, so just wanted to pick those out really well and lay those in. At first I thought about doing black, but black I was afraid would be just a little too dark for the skin color that I used. I don't think it would look quite as right. It would really make him look pale. So I wanted to go with browns and then highlights into golds for kind of sun bleached now that he's out in the field. And Dell, the cleric, just coming right along. As that beard dries, we're just going to give some highlights into golds and get that face complete. Going through and just making sure that all of the beard looks good and even. The one side is a challenge to get to, but let every side dry. Next time I'm thinking we'll probably tackle the outer cloak, but we'll see. There is our Dell so far, Delwyn, who is a cleric of Lathander. I think he's coming along pretty good. Highlight that beard a little bit more. We just really want to be able to tell where the light is hitting it. Overall, I think this one's going to be a fun one to do, especially once we get into the cloak and then the hawk especially. The staff I'm going to do more like the cobra staff. It's supposed to be a staff of the serpent. Even though Dell doesn't have one, again, I'm looking at just bits and pieces that really speak to me for the character that I think the player will enjoy as well, once I'm able to gift it when we get to play in person. And really looking forward to those times, especially to see what the player thinks of this mini. I think it's coming along pretty good. I think that top does look velvety. I think the breeches do look like a good supple wool. And overall, I think it's looking pretty good. Good skin tones on it. And just one final wash onto the beard. And I think for this one, we're just about done. Hope you enjoy. Make sure that you join us next week when we paint some more on Delwyn, the Cleric of Lathander. Enjoy. Thanks for watching our video. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was enlightening and informative. Here's another video we think you may enjoy. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to help us grow. Remember, we launch new videos every week to try to help you answer the question of where will your adventures take you.